This should be played at high volume.
Welcome to Outta Pocket. Here's your host, Michael Davis.
Welcome to Outta Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. This is your live roundtable for your lunch break, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Tuesday. I'm joined by Mike Mele from the Mouth Off with Mike Wrestling Podcast. We're joined by first-time guest Wayne Thomas on the panel today, and we're joined by producer Desmond Johnson. We're going to talk a little bit about some NFL stuff, and since I got all my wrestling guys, I might throw some WWE in there with WrestleMania coming up. But before we get into that, the wait is over. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of NASCAR, is now live in North Carolina. Now you can legally bet on all your favorite sports anytime, anywhere, right here in North Carolina with DraftKings. For a limited time, new customers who sign up with promo code Tobacco Road and bet $5 will receive $250 instantly in bonus bets. DraftKings has the best features, including same-game parlays, player props, and more with fast and easy payouts right at your fingertips. People are talking about NASCAR this Sunday, but people are also talking about March Madness this week. We got Wagner and Howard tonight. Howard's favored by 3 points right there. You can also bet on Cornell, Ohio State, Boston College, Providence, and also bet on how many threes a player hits, how many rebounds a player gets. It's March Madness. It's crazy with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now using code Tobacco Road and bet $5 to get $250 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code Tobacco Road. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 877-185543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov. 21 plus, North Carolina only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com/sportsbook/NC. NASCAR is not sponsored of this promotion and used under license. And I was watching some of the content on Tobacco Road Sports Radio this morning. Desmond Johnson had a busy morning with Believe in Panthers, with Believe in Hills Hoops, and he started talking about brackets. And I'm like, I'm not the best guy to fill out a bracket. He usually gets busted. But we'll be talking a lot of March Madness later on this week. I did want to recap before it kind of gets, lost in the madness of March. We had the NFL free agency last week, and we had some big moves come up. And so we got a few representatives right here. Mike's a Philly fan, unfortunately. Wayne is repping his Baltimore Ravens with that purple right now. And, of course, Desmond Johnson, a part of the Believe in Panthers podcast. He is a Carolina fan. So I wanted to ask you guys, having a week to reflect on your division's moves during the free agency offseason, some trade acquisitions as well, some trade losses. How do you think your division stacks from number 1 to number 4 right now? Mike, you're in the NFC East. I'll let you go first.
Oh boy. So I'll be biased, and I mean maybe I'll cut some slack on social media for this, but I think Philly number 1 easily, hands down, number 1. They went out there, they signed guys that really they didn't even really need. They went out, they signed Kenny Pickett. That was a shocker to me. Perennial backup quarterback incoming. We went out there, we got Devin White, we got Saquon Barkley, we got Bryce Huff. I would say number 1. Number 2 would go to Washington. They made some significant improvements, with Eckler, Ertz, and I'm probably forgetting a few more that they signed. And I'd say number 3, New York with the Giants. And number 4, Mike, I'm sorry, the Cowboys come in dead last. No free agent signed, man.
So I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself, okay? I could have phrased the question a little bit easier. Based on their free agent acquisitions, how do they stack up as a whole, as a team, and standings-wise? Because if you're putting my Cowboys 4th, you and me might have some issues off the air.
Well, I mean, let's be real here. I'll still reemphasize my point. The Eagles number 1, easily number 1. The Cowboys, okay, if we're gonna say like what they've got, left on the squad, maybe you could make an argument that they're number 3 on that list. Because look, dude, you said it yourself to me off the air a few weeks ago, or just last week when we were doing Drop the Mic. Cowboys do this every year. They didn't do anything. Jerry Jones said, "Look, I'm all in, baby. I'm spending the money," and he folded before he even got to the river. I don't even understand that. So that's where my thoughts are at on it. Eagles number 1, Commanders number 2, Giants 3, and maybe you could argue your Cowboys get that 3 spot.
I'm gonna hold off right now. I'm gonna switch to the AFC North before we kick Mike off out of pocket. Wayne, in terms of what the AFC North teams have done this far, how does it look up going into next season?
Well, listen, the king is coming to Baltimore, baby. That's all I can be happy about right now. Listen, Ravens number 1, acquiring Derrick Henry. That's huge. Let's see how much gas he has left in the tank. I mean, he still broke 1,000 yards last year. We'll see what happens with that. I'm going Browns number 2. That might be a shocker, but their defense really woke up last year. I think they ride the momentum. They got Jerry Jeudy. Let's see if he can do. If he's not just a jag like Steve Smith likes to call him, we'll see what happens there. Then I'm going Steelers number 3. We'll see what happens with Russ Wilson and Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is going to take the job. I mean, he's too talented not to. I think he could spark some magic in that offense, something they desperately need. And, Mike Tomlin has proved time and time again he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. He's going to make something happen with Fields. And Bengals, I'm going last. Joe Burrow looked really, he looked rough last year, to be honest with you. I don't think they made like huge inquiries right there. Obviously they got our guy, Geno Stone from the Ravens. But I just think the Bengals are going to be in a prove it situation to see if they can come back to glory. That's where I'm at right now.
I'd almost on your list bump Cleveland all the way down to 4 because I don't trust whatever's happening with that quarterback situation.
It's tough, but I think the coach last year proved that he's a legit. He could bring that team. You saw what they did with Joe Flacco, and listen, I love Flacco. Flacco's always going to be my guy. But I don't know, man. I think the Browns can shock some people.
Okay, Des, your Panthers, how are they looking, stacking up in the NFC South? I know some moves people might be thinking it's a rebuilding year for them.
Yeah, it's a rebuild year. I mean, literally, Dave Canales and Dan Morgan are stripping this thing to the studs and rebuilding it out. And it looks like they're rebuilding it around Bryce Young on the offensive side and Derek Brown on the defensive side, which is the way to go. So for the division, because we've got some quarterbacks coming in here now and some settled ground, I'm leaning towards Tampa again with Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans back in the fold. They still have probably the most potent offense in the league. Well, not in the league, but in the division. We'll see how potent it is with Dave Canales now in Charlotte. So the past 2 places he had left had dropped offensively once he was gone. Most recently, Seattle and Geno Smith. Geno Smith got that bag because Dave Canales was his quarterback coach pretty much and looked really good. He hasn't looked the same since he left. So kind of leaning on Tampa. I'd pick Atlanta, but I'm not sure what Kirk Cousins is going to look like yet because he tore his Achilles or whatever. So I'm not sure how much he'll be back. I liked the signing for Atlanta. So to me, that was their main issue. They didn't have a quarterback that they trusted. I don't trust Desmond Ridder. I thought they were going to go after Justin Fields, and they're probably slapping themselves now knowing they could have did it for a 6th-round pick, but that's neither here nor there. So I'll put Atlanta at 2. Then I kind of got the Saints and the Panthers kind of 3-4 because the Saints are the oldest team in the division. They've done some things, but they're kind of unsettled at quarterback too. I'm not even sure who the starting quarterback is for the Saints. Is it Derek Carr still?
As of now, it's Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Jameis Winston's gone. He signed elsewhere. I can't remember. I think, was it the Browns? I can't remember where he signed. Yeah, Jameis Winston's someplace else. So New Orleans has an issue there. They're a year older. They let Mike Thomas go. They cut him last week. Alvin Kamara's a year older. That offensive line's a year older. Cam Jordan's a year older. So I have that juxtaposed with Carolina. No one's going to really know what Carolina is because the roster is going to be completely brand new. And they fixed the interior of the offensive line. We're starting to think they're going to draft a center with that 1st, 2nd round pick, the kid from West Virginia. that people are talking about. Zach Ferguson, I think his name is. So if they draft a center there, they'll fix the interior for Bryce. They've picked up some wide receivers. They picked up some defense. They kind of filled in the hole pretty well for letting Brian Burns go and Frankie Louvu and others. So right now, Tampa 1, Atlanta 2, and then kind of a tie with New Orleans and Carolina at the bottom of the division.
Wow.
And that's in March. So we'll see after the draft and everything else. But
and to be fair, Des made a great point. This is March. We still have some free agent moves that will happen. We'll still have some trades that happen. We'll have the draft next month, which could show a lot what's going to happen to a lot of these teams. Mike mentioned the NFC East, and I wanted to come back to this because I am a Dallas Cowboys guy, and there's never the same division winner in the NFC East. It never happens. So I'm automatically just not putting Dallas at number 1. When I look at the other 3 teams, I think Philly is the most complete team, but they did lose 2 of probably their biggest cornerstone pieces in Jason Kelce and Fletcher Cox. One of your best offensive linemen, one of your best defensive linemen, 2 great team captains. You lose them. So it's not going to be all, roses and butterflies in Philadelphia, but it's enough to win that division. I'm going to still put Dallas 2. I don't know why. I don't know how, but I don't trust the other 2 teams. I don't trust Dan Quinn and the Washington Commanders. Usually teams who overspend in free agency and bring in all these new players, they don't mesh at the beginning of the season. And then next thing you know, you're 1-5, 1-6, and you're like, oh my gosh, how do we get out of this? And in a division with the Cowboys, in a division with the Eagles, you can't fall behind like that. And then the Giants. I have absolutely no idea what they're going to do. Like Brian Burns was on the Panthers last year, and the team didn't do great. But if you look at the Giants, they lost one of their best players in Saquon Barkley. Saquon was probably the only reason Daniel Jones was relevant a couple years ago. So it doesn't look as great in Giants, but I'm assuming the Cowboys end up second place. And it's interesting to note that we have a few wrestling fans here. Mike runs his own wrestling podcast, Mouthing Off with Mike. Wayne is actually going to be making his Drop the Mic debut tomorrow afternoon. He's going to come on the show, talk some wrestling with myself and Sean Lucas, who was on yesterday's Out of Pocket that you can watch on demand on Tobacco Road. And then Desmond Johnson and I have chopped it up about wrestling either on Drop the Mic or our Facebook page, The Wrestling Movement, or his show, Franchise Players. And so I want to introduce a new segment that we can do some Tuesdays. It's called Top Rope Tuesdays. And on Tuesdays, I'm going to bring up a wrestling-related question, okay? We'll talk a little bit more about NFL towards the end of the show. But I want to know there's 2 big main events happening in a couple weeks. One of them is night 1, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus The Rock and Roman Reigns. And night 2 is Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes for the title. Depending who wins night 1, depends how night 2 kind of goes. So I wanted to pose it to you guys. Wayne, I'll start with you, seeing you're going to be on Drop the Mic tomorrow. Who do you think wins both of these main events?
Night 1 is going to be The Rock and Roman Reigns. I firmly believe that. I think they're going to build the anticipation for night 2. I think Cody's going to win night 2, but I think he's going to win going all out, regardless of bloodline rules, the way he should win. And I think that's just how it's going to be. I think night 1 is definitely The Rock, Roman Reigns, make everybody feel like, oh my gosh, what's happening? He's not going to finish the story. And then he finished the story in a big way on night 2.
So who eats the pin on night 1? Would you have Cody eat the pin?
No, I have Rollins eating the pin.
Okay.
That, he didn't do what he needed to do with Cody, type thing. I could just see that happening.
Okay, so Cody doesn't take the loss on night 1, but enters night 2 with bloodline rules. Mike, You host the Mouthing Off with the Mike podcast. I know where you stand on this. Unless you want to change positions, let us know what you think.
Oh man, you already know it's finished the story season, baby. It's all about that story, baby. That story is finishing itself at WrestleMania 40 in just 18 days, ladies and gentlemen. That is on the doorstep. I can't believe how fast WrestleMania has gotten here. But I have to agree with Wayne, man. I think night 1, I think there's going to be a lot of a lot of shenanigans in this match night one. I think you're going to see Drew McIntyre. I think you're going to see the Bloodline. You're going to see probably half the roster come out at some point during this, like a good old fashioned ending of a ruthless aggression SmackDown. You're going to see chaos. But at the end of the day, Saturday, Rock and Roman will win, and they'll have that false sense of confidence heading into Sunday where the roster and Seth and everyone will, in fact, be there for those Bloodline rules, whatever they may entail. Like The Rock said, maybe Solo's busting out America the Beautiful during the match, and we got The Rock on commentary. And honestly, I'd be very sports entertained. But the story is getting finished. Get ready to learn the lyrics to Kingdom, buddy.
And petitioning right now on Out of Pocket with Michael Davis. And if you're commenting on our Facebook or YouTube, your comment has the potential to pop up on the screen as well. We're petitioning for hashtag Solo National Anthem. Okay.
Yes.
Solo National Anthem. Have him open both night 1 and night 2. Des, do you agree with the Cody Crybabies?
Absolutely not. And I've been on record about this the entire year. This is not about Cody Rhodes. It's never been about Cody Rhodes. It's about the Bloodline storyline. It's been going on for 3 years. And if anything, Wayne, you guys have shown me that what WWE is doing, Mike, it's working. Yeah. You're buying into it. You feel like Cody has to win this match. They're not going to give it to you because the story's not over yet. And actually, I haven't watched all of Raw yet. I saw the Cody Rhodes Paul Heyman segment last night before I went to bed. I saw it on YouTube. So I got a chance to watch that whole 20 minutes. And in it, Cody actually admits that might not be the way his story ends. It's the first time he actually said it out loud, that it might not end with him winning the title from Roman. What I think is going to happen is actually Rock and Roman are going to lose night 1. Rock is going to take the pin from Cody because I don't know why, but it feels like they've been doing more Cody versus Rock in the build up to WrestleMania in these promos than Cody versus Roman. And I feel like it has to do with what's going to happen after WrestleMania. They're setting the seeds now. So Roman, Rock, they lose to Cody and Seth. Cody pins Rock or Cody pins Roman. Don't really matter. Actually, I'll say that Cody pins Roman. So at that point, the only people that would have beaten Roman in the past 2 years or pinned him would be Cody and Jey Uso. That goes to the next night, and that gives it where there's no bloodline allowed at the ring, right? So you get one-on-one, Cody versus Roman, Wayne, Mike, all the Cody Cryberries, they think this is it. This is when he's going to do it. And that's going to be the moment when someone's going to interfere in this match that is not in the bloodline to help Roman win this match. And I've been saying Tama Tonga because he had been signed a couple of weeks ago, and they can easily just slide him right in. They're friends off camera. They've gone back and forth on social media. It would make complete sense. I think Haku is his adopted dad or something like that. So he's actually technically in the bloodline, just not officially. But the past week or so, I started thinking about it, and I started thinking, what if it's Jay? What if Jay is the one that actually comes in and interferes? Because technically he's not in the bloodline right now, and his match will be the night before against Jimmy. So depending on what happens in that match, I could see Jay interfering, super kicking Cody or whatever. There's storyline there because Cody brought Jay to Raw, got him away from the bloodline. What if all that was just a intricate laid out plan by Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns to move Jay over to Raw for a while and basically infiltrate while Cody was there, knowing Cody was going to be sniffing around when it came to WrestleMania, and they'd have him in his back pocket, which is why they said the bloodline rules in the first place. Like, all of this has just been a big setup to get it to that point. And then the backlash would be the next pay-per-view, and you get Rock versus Cody one-on-one. And all that's going to eventually lead to Rock versus Seth Rollins for that belt one-on-one, and Rock's going to take it.
I hate to admit it.
Give me 3 months of good stuff right there.
I hate to admit it. But Des is cooking, and he brought up a valid point that I actually brought up last week on my show, that I was like, is there a possibility that The Rock does in fact come after Seth Rollins after WrestleMania? Because he keeps mentioning, and he's like, I'm going to make that title disappear.
Yeah.
He never outright said he's just going to scrap it from the divisions. He just said he's going to make it disappear. So that part I agree. As for Jay turning on Cody at Mania, man, I'd be a little upset because I feel like they've done such a.
That's what they want. They want you to be upset.
Yeah. I mean,
That's literally the feeling they're going after. Like, what's the one thing you would hate
but they
coming out of
worked so
WrestleMania?
hard on the Jey Uso character, you know. They
Mhm.
worked so hard on separating him from the bloodline and him becoming his own man. I just feel like he doesn't need to be back in the bloodline. What I'd like to see is like after him and Jay's or Jimmy's match, I'd like to see maybe he can, you know, turn Jimmy in his favor, and maybe at the end of WrestleMania, maybe it's Jimmy and Jay and Solo branching away from Roman Sunday night. And that's maybe there's your bloodline story that can continue throughout, you know, the early spring, summer, because I feel in my heart that I think Solo will become the next tribal chief at some point, or at least
That's coming, but not yet. Like that's you're a
a
year
little,
ahead.
a year ahead.
I think they got to
Okay.
get to the next WrestleMania. All that stuff happens then, and then that all this Roman going away, taking a break, all that stuff, all that makes sense then at that point, because then he's broke Hogan's record and has been champ for 4 years.
Yeah,
So
I feel like the Hogan record thing, it's like, unless you're gonna sit there and say like he's gonna break Bruno Sammartino's record, Hulk Hogan's just number 3 on the list. You know what I mean? Like it's like going into it's like being in NASCAR and like celebrating you came in third, because it's like to me, if you're gonna do it and it's all about the numbers, then you might as well go for gold and try to hold it for 8 years if you're gonna get crazy
for like
about
another
it.
4 years or whatever.
Yeah, I
Which
mean,
technically, I guess they could try to do, but I think they're going to call it like the longest record of the modern era or something like that.
that's
That'll be how they
the
separate it
easiest.
out.
Yeah, I was they
But-
have to. I mean,
But this whole thing, it has never been about Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes got placed in here as the face last year because they couldn't get Rock and Roman together, and the fans just gravitated to Cody Rhodes. They didn't plan this out when they were doing the Bloodline story. He's a chapter of the bigger story. Like, Cody's story is not the big story here. It's been the Bloodline for 4 years, and everyone's ignoring that now because they've kind of tampered the Bloodline down. If you notice, there's no new Bloodline shirts or anything like that. They haven't had them for months because they learned the mistakes of the NWO, basically. Yeah. Like, don't shove this down our throat for 2 straight years or 3 years. They've spaced it out, and all it's doing is just going to come back to reunification. Jay's coming back to Bloodline. Rock's in Bloodline. Like, they're going to run with a stronger Bloodline. Maybe they add Tama. I don't know, but maybe they add Nia Jax. Maybe they add Naomi. Like, they're going to get bigger, and it's going to make sense. And they're going to run through the WWE for another year, and then whoever stops it next year, which probably is going to be The Rock. But that's kind of where this is going right now. No outsider is going to end this Bloodline storyline. Is basically what I'm saying.
You think it's an internal title switch where it's like
Solo,
someone Jay or a Solo
or Jay. Yeah, any of those make way more sense than putting it on Cody Rhodes, to be honest.
I will say one thing though, is that with Cody, you say, the Bloodline is the primary focus here, but also they made it personal with Cody last year in the build to WrestleMania. So that the minute they invoked the Dusty Rhodes, like, your father was like a father to me, as soon as you flip that switch with Cody, that's it. It's personal. Now he is intertwined with the Bloodline story as of the last 2 years. That's I would argue that.
Which is why it's going to hurt when he gets pinned by Roman after getting kicked in the mouth by Jay. Like, they've laid this out for the whole year. Like, I've always wanted to book, like, for WWE, and especially like with this stuff, because the way the Bloodline's done it with Paul Heyman, they have layered stuff intricately over like years so they can pull back on for more storyline. And Cody just adds to it. Like, Roman's not losing that belt to Cody Rhodes. I'm sorry. I know people want him to. They built it perfectly. Roman's walking out at WrestleMania the champ. Like,
and as you mentioned, they've pulled our heartstrings before with Drew McIntyre winning in front of his home crowd, Sami Zayn winning in Montreal, Cody Rhodes winning it last year to finish his story, Jey Uso standing up to Roman Reigns as the little cousin, and it never happens.
Never does.
It never happens. We'll have to see what happens. Wayne's going to be on Drop the Mic tomorrow. Mike Mele drops Mouthing Off with Mike, I believe, tomorrow as well as part of your Wrestling Wednesday lineup. So we'll be talking a lot more about Roman Reigns, The Rock, Cody Rhodes. But I will say this before we moved on to our That Aged Well segment. I wrote an article.
Actually, Mike, before you do that, I've got some breaking news.
Oh, is this real breaking news, or is this?
Yeah, it's real. It's real.
Okay.
The AP All-American First Team just got released here a little bit ago. Zach Edey from Purdue, Dalton Neck. Am I saying it right? Dalton Neck. from
Connect.
Tennessee, Jamal Shed from Houston, RJ Davis from North Carolina, and Tristan Newton from UConn.
Oh, wow.
So that's your All-American first team.
Does anybody have thoughts on any snubs? Think they got it right? I like Edey.
I don't know if
being in
Newton
there.
should have been a first team All-American, but it looks right. Yeah, looks right to me.
Yeah.
So,
There's your legit breaking news right there. But we'll move right into that aged well. And if you've been watching the show, this is how we end every Out of Pocket. And sometimes I give people the same question, but I wanted to hit different ones. And I'm going to hit the final wrestling thing we'll talk about before we end with football is I want to deflect to Wayne because tomorrow night, Adam Copeland, Christian Cage, and I Quit match, I believe for the TNT Championship. Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge. So this is the trilogy of their feud in AEW since he returned. Who do you think wins this one?
Give me Christian Cage. I don't think the plan was ever to have Adam Copeland and take a title from Christian Cage. It's just not the way it's supposed to go. Christian Cage has been doing the best work he's been doing in his career in AEW. I firmly believe that. I don't know how the match ends. I think it's going to be crazy, but Christian Cage retains. They move on from his storyline.
Wow. And Wayne and I actually met at AEW Revolution, standing in line. I was like, I just want to see Adam Copeland. That's all I want. And he never showed up.
That they fumbled that hard. We were talking, for those who weren't there, you can see the camera angle slowly showing the stage. We thought he was going to run out, and it was Daddy Magic. We were like, what's going on? Biggest disappointment ever. I love him. God bless Daddy Magic, but yeah, that was a shame.
Yeah, it didn't make sense. As I mentioned, Wayne's going to be on Dropping the Mic tomorrow. Mike has a wrestling podcast, but I want to ask Mike a football question because we don't get to ask you a lot of football questions a lot of time. There's rumors Hassan Reddick might not be on the Philadelphia Eagles next year. Where does Reddick play in 2024?
I'd love to have him in Philly, man. He's a great guy, and I know he's at the. He's getting up there in age, and we just signed all these guys, and we're giving all this money away. So I don't feasibly think it's in the cards, especially when you have Nolan Smith there, a guy that they're really trying to work in the mix. You've got Huff, you've got everyone there. So if I were to give you a shot in the dark and give you a guess, we've got a good relationship with Tennessee. Maybe he's a Tennessee Titan.
How many times the Titans and Eagles have swapped players, thinking about A.J. Brown going to Philly, DeMarco Murray going to Tennessee. Maybe Reddick ends up in Tennessee with Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley and company. Des, your question for that aged well. I noticed, in Believe in Panthers, you were talking a little bit about who the Panthers have signed. You've mentioned this episode that it's a rebuild year. Who else do you expect the Panthers to sign in free agency, if anybody?
Well, Mike Williams is supposed to come in for a visit, I think today, in Charlotte, the wide receiver, formerly from the Chargers, coming off of a torn ACL. He played to, I think it was week 3 last year, and he got injured, and got released, by Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. But I'm actually going to land on Jadeveon Clowney. He's still out. He's still a free agent. He's at the part of his career where he probably hates OTAs and training camp and all that stuff in July and August. So he's going to be a late signer probably. When we were doing Believe in Panthers, we went to look it up. He's from Rock Hill. He's from Rock Hill, South Carolina, which is where the Panthers are basically based, where they were building that huge $75 million practice facility before David Tepper just said, I'm not doing that anymore. So he's literally as local as you can get. And we've kind of wanted him here for the past couple of years, just never worked out. Former number 1 pick from Houston, played at South Carolina. Everybody knows the viral hit he had against Michigan, knocked off the running back's helmet in the backfield. That whole thing kind of put him to claim to fame, but they can still use some pass rush, and Clowney could give him a good rotation. So I'm going to go with Jadeveon Clowney.
He's going with Jadeveon Clowney.
I
and
like that.
For my sake, though, I hope that doesn't happen because, well, you forget I host the Cat Cave with Ryan Frick.
Oh, right.
Who is a huge South Carolina fan.
You would love it.
He would love. He was giving us a hard time about DJ Wanham ended up in Carolina.
He did.
He's like,
yeah.
if Clowney shows up, he's like, I'm getting a jersey. I'm wearing it every episode. And
I mean,
like,
why not? I'm just hosting a podcast about the Panthers. I might as well lean in.
But he's such a Gamecock homer. But love you, Ryan. It's going to be a great time with you and Shannon tomorrow. So like I said, Out Pocket skips Wednesdays because we do release Drop the Mic on Wednesdays. We release the Cat Cave, and then Out Pocket will be back Thursday. So before you guys come back on Thursday, I want you guys to fill out your bracket. I want you to drop in the comments, share it with us.
I was going to actually ask you a question, Mike. I didn't know for sure, but I don't know how you have your guests set, but do you want to go at 11:30 Thursday and Friday? Because the tournament's going to start at noon both days.
I can reach out to some people and see what happening.
Okay, because I think all of my live pods in the mornings are done because I've crammed them all into Tuesday. So I think I think I'll be available. But I started thinking about it yesterday in the car. I'm like, wait a minute, we'll be on right when the tournament starts. What if we can get on right before it starts and lead you into the tournament? So that way you can do it that way. And Thursday you can do the Thursday matchups before they begin, and Friday you can do the Friday matchups before they begin, or at least a segment. So maybe we do that.
Yeah, maybe we do that. Guys, stay tuned to Out Pocket socials. There may be a time switch for the tournament on Thursday and Friday. You guys stay tuned for that. But for today, this has been Out Pocket with Michael Davis. Go check out Mike's work with the Mouthing Off with Mike Wrestling podcast. Go check out Wayne's debut on Drop the Mic tomorrow afternoon. Go check out the Cat Cave. Follow the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel for all the content we're dropping. We're dropping a lot more content for you guys to consume. Hope this was a great lunch break with us, and we will see you guys back on Thursday. Stay tuned to know the time.